Hi everyone. I am so excited to be here once again for a Q&A live here in the tribe. And our guest today is so amazing, Callum Smart. I'm so happy to have you here.
My pleasure. So excited, and thank you for having me.
Oh, Callum, it's just I've been following you for such a long time. It's as I was telling you, it feels kind of funny to have you sitting here answering back at me after watching so many of your incredible videos online. And we're going to get to that in a second. Before we hop in our conversation, I want to give a little reminder to everyone that the Music Mastery experience is now open for enrollment. If this is a transformational journey that you're looking for, this is what I have for you. This is a journey to loving the practice room, rocking the stage, winning the job of your dreams, and taking your career to new heights. All the information about the program can be found at mindoverfinger.com/mme. And if you're new to my work and you've never heard of it, the Music Mastery Experience is my highly personalized group coaching experience. It goes for 3 months and we start June 1st. We start June 1st. And I'm going to have you ready to rock by September. So if you're looking to gain more mastery on your instrument, you want to feel empowered in the practice room, you want to feel confident in performance, you want to start seeing amazing results in your musical life, I have what you need. And I want to give you the tools to feel empowered, to go from stuck to free or shaky to confident. And you're going to know how to practice, prepare for performance, be rid of doubts. You're going to get maximal results and you're going to feel like you're achieving your full potential. And you're going to get the guidance to get powerful results. And these are the tools that help me win jobs, win competitions, and perform optimally in my career. So whether you're a student looking to maximize everything you're doing and get real momentum to get your career started, or you're a young professional looking for better work opportunities, maybe you're a seasoned professional wanting more fulfillment and consistent peak performance, less stress, this program is for you. It's going to help you save time. If you feel like you're constantly so busy, there's never enough time to practice. That's how I feel at times. And you still need to perform at the highest level. You want more results and a higher quality of life. We cover all of these things in the program. You're going to progress faster, feel like you're performing at your best, and feel confident. So if that sounds good to you, feeling empowered, confident, less stress, fulfilled, and you want to reconnect with your love of music, let's talk. And of course, the information is amazing, but it's also about the community. In MME, you get a powerful high performance toolkit. But my favorite thing about the program is the amazing group of supportive musicians that are embarking on this journey with you. They're going to give you this motivation, the accountability, inspiration that's going to carry you even higher over the next 3 months. So if you know this is something that you need, that you want, if you're looking to take things to the next level and have optimal performance time after time and enjoy the journey, it's possible to enjoy the journey. Go to mindoverfinger.com/mme, check out the details, book your free conversation with me, and let's make it happen. So there's everything you need to walk on stage or in the audition room, fully confident, play your best, and create incredible things in your life. And, I think if you're a teacher, imagine having the ability to give all of these tools to your students. So, like I said, it's a high performance toolkit. If it sounds good to you, go to mindoverfinger.com/mme, book your free call, and together let's see if it's a good fit for you. And now, without further ado, I'm really, really happy to turn things over to Callum Smart. Callum, thanks again for being here. Now, please tell us a little bit about you, your career, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks so much. And first of all, your course sounds incredible. Definitely sign me up.
Um,
uh,
you're in.
Anyways, yeah, so my name is Callum Smart. I'm a violinist based in Manchester, soloist based in Manchester, and I also teach at the Royal Northern College. And yeah, my journey started at 6 years old, got handed a violin just in the classroom of the local school I went to. And really, it was kind of just that instant impact and connection with the instrument. I just absolutely loved everything about the physicality of the instrument and also just performing to people and sharing the love of music. And I think that kind of carries me right the way through now. I really just spent hours practicing and hours playing to different people. And when I was younger, I did a couple competitions after I did good preparation for those. And those were kind of my first um, chances to realize, okay, I could do this professionally. There's kind of an opportunity for this to develop professionally. And from there, I signed with an agent. I was lucky to have incredible teachers, and performance opportunities started coming in, and I had the chance to kind of hone my craft. And that's kind of taken me all the way to where I am now, education in Indiana University, with amazing teacher Mauricio Fuchs. And I've been back and forth between America and the UK the last kind of 4 or 5 years, performing and teaching.
And Callum has the most amazing Instagram account, so full of valuable informations, mostly targeting, violinists and violists. But I think that a lot of the information you give could be valuable for all instrumentalists. So I suggest that you check it out when this goes out as a podcast episode, and it's also going to be on YouTube. I'll have all the links to find Callum anywhere in the show notes and in the comments. So please look at his Instagram account and his website for upcoming concert dates. Concerts are coming back.
Finally, finally coming back. Very excited.
Yes. Callum, we already have some really great questions. I'm going to pull them up right now.
Great.
Oops. Okay. Can't minimize my window when I'm live, apparently. So here we go. Okay. Anna wants to know, what does it mean to play with expression, and how do you develop the ability? Such a great question.
It's an amazing question. I think how to play expressively, how to develop it. I think that it really firstly comes down to having the desire to show and express everything that you're feeling on the inside. I think first it starts by kind of getting in contact with exactly what you're trying to communicate to people, because expression is communication. It's communicating our characters, our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings. So I think first, in terms of how to put that into practical use, I don't even touch the violin. Just close my eyes, sing a passage or look at the music and really think about, what do I want to say here? Once I have that, it's so much easier to then put that into practice and then find the technical solutions to kind of communicate exactly that. I think that, to really feel our internal voice before we externalize it is incredibly important. We so often get caught up with expressing ourselves with our instrument that we forget that it has to come from our gut. It has to come from another place first. And yeah, that's really kind of, I think, the truest form of expression, when we're communicating exactly what we feel and what we want. And I find through singing is probably the best way to get in contact with that. So in terms of practical advice, I would sing as many passages as possible. I sing and play at the same time. I record myself singing a passage, play the same passage, then record both of them and see how similar they are. That's another interesting technique to do. A lot of people will be shocked at what happens when you do that, because when we sing something, we think, oh, that sounded very natural. And then when we play something, sometimes we think, oh, that was very natural too. But actually, it's only when kind of looking at both do we realize how different they can be sometimes. And that to me is one of the best things you can do to develop your expression, to compare those two versions and see how close they are together. Because if they're very different, then you're not expressing yourself.
Like my inner geek just lit up right there, because I like to think I'm full of tips, but I have never thought about recording myself singing and comparing with the playing. I'm gonna have to try this today. This is
It's a
great.
lot of fun, but it's yeah, I have to say, full disclaimer alert, at first it is pretty horrifying because nobody likes hearing the sound of their own voice, especially not me because I'm not a good singer. But once you get past that initial hurdle, it is one of the best things you can do with your practice, I think.
Wow, I love that. And I think because what you just said makes me think of a video that you posted that I was watching recently, is that how we connect what we hear in our head to our instrument. And this is why teachers are so annoying with do your long tones, practice your bow exercises, and or practice your vibrato, is because
Mm.
when you start to really master or control these elements, then you can go straight from this intention that you were talking about and executing it on the instrument. Um,
Mhm.
so, another great reason to go to your Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
absolutely. That's so true. And I think that really knowing what you're trying to express before you worry about the technique is always the best way to go. Because if you first focus, let's say, on your vibrato, but vibrato kind of alone is a bit of a vacuum.
Mm,
It's a very mechanical thing. I mean, yes, that you can do some vibrato exercises and that will be helpful up to a certain point. But really, if you're not connected with what you're trying to express, then your vibrato has no outlet for creativity.
yes. That's so great. Anna is here and she says she loves that answer and that this is something that she can do.
Great. That's what we like
Yeah.
to hear.
Yes. The second question we had is from Joe, who says, what is your go-to warm-up routine? And does it change with the type of repertoire you are working on?
I think that it does definitely change with the repertoire that I'm working on, and it also differs week to week depending on how I'm feeling. Sometimes you wake up and your right shoulder's feeling tight the way you slept on it. You've got to kind of be very in touch with your body on a kind of hourly basis when you're practicing. I think that, I always focus on where I feel the most tight, and on any given day, that will be where I first go to in my warm up.
Mm,
I think that when you just do a collection of things to do them, whether it's practicing your Paganini caprices or practicing your studies or playing scales first because everyone says you should do scales to warm up. I think that when you just do things to do them, that's normally where you aren't the most productive or the most in touch with actually what you need. So I would say in terms of my warm-ups, it almost doesn't make sense for me to tell you my warm-ups because the point I'm trying to make is it's about what you need.
mhm.
You be in touch with your own body and your own kind of bad habits with the instrument. If you notice that your left hand is really tight when you vibrate or something, then my warm-up might look something that revolves around kind of relaxing that. So I think everybody's different, and to really be in touch with what you need before you start playing the instrument is the most important thing I could say to that.
I love this answer so much because it's what you said here. You saw me taking some notes. You focus on what's tight. It's such a great way to get in touch with yourself. And oftentimes we're so eager to jump into the work, we just kind of start without a real plan.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Interestingly enough, it's a little bit like trying to play a piece without having the intention of what we're trying to say. If I tie it back to the first question,
Right.
so such a great way to bring our attention to the present moment, seeing what's tight and how we can address it with the warm up. And I have
Yeah.
my own question about something that you said earlier. You were talking about competitions, and I always love to hear from musicians who did competitions as kids what it brought to them. And we know there are good and bad things about competitions. I did a lot of competitions as a kid, and I know that it was extremely formative for me. So I always like to hear about people's experience with competitions.
Yeah, I think that my personal experience with competitions are positive. I think that they're excellent tools for preparation. I don't think you kind of work as hard as when you're kind of preparing for something like a competition or an audition, just because that the stakes are a little bit higher. So you really spend the time to put in the work. Whereas maybe in another scenario, you might kind of do a lot of good work and then kind of say, oh, it's probably good enough. Not that that is the only form of motivation, but I find it can be a very good form of motivation to really get something to the highest point of preparation possible. Having said that, I think there are also flip sides, things that are maybe not as positive with competitions. But personally, I think I was lucky enough not to have felt those things. Perhaps because I was young and didn't think about them as much. I think when you do competitions as adults, maybe you're more aware of the different kind of pressures and stresses of the competition. But when you're a kid, you just kind of go in there and have fun and do it, which I think I would say I try to bring that mentality to how I am now as well. And I think that that can be a really helpful form of mental preparation too.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with you. It's all about your attitude towards it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up in Canada, we have the Canadian music competition that a lot of people partake in, and it
Mm-hmm.
has three finals, so local, provincial, and national. And local had usually something like maybe a solo piece, Bach, type thing, and a little piece, and then provincial had different type of repertoire, and the final had a concerto usually. So it's the whole year you're working on all of these pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's for me as a kid, it was a great motivator to have this goal of not necessarily winning, but learn the repertoire and do well and go there and meet all of these people. To this day, there's so many faces that I've seen since I was, a kid in those competitions. And to this day, now we're colleagues as professionals, but we've known each other since we were, 10 years old. And it's such a great place to meet people and have this shared experience of music making. I really love that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes competitions can feel like maybe there's a lot to lose by doing a competition. But I think, one mental approach that really has helped me, and I think people can take a lot away from, is that you are exactly the same person and player, whether you do well or don't do well in a competition. And I think that's so often when we go in with the mindset of, I'm a worse player if I don't do well in this competition, it really puts people off from pursuing opportunities that, for all logical reasons, would be good opportunities for them. So I would say with competitions, if the reason you're not doing it is because you're not sure if you'll do well, then just to remember that you'll be exactly the same player whether you enter the competition or not, and probably a better one, because our point is that you actually practice more and prepare better because you're doing it. So if anything, you'll be a better player by preparing for it, not by doing the competition itself.
100%. I agree. Yes. And if you're here, you're watching this live right now, please don't hesitate to post your questions. I hope that I get to see them in real time, that I'm not missing anything. It doesn't look like I'm missing them. I always have my phone nearby so I can double check.
Right.
Um, and I'd like to ask you one question. It's a topic that I find comes back a lot, which is the topic of negative emotions in practice, of frustration. And
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear your view on this. How you, what are your go-to tips when you yourself experience frustration or anger in the practice room, if you do?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I have to say, the way I am just in general in life, I think influences how I am in the practice room, which is that I really think humor is such a good tool in practice. I think if you can kind of laugh at your mistakes and not kind of take them so seriously, always kind of remember the bigger picture, I think it helps take off so much pressure and kind of the burden of, we have to succeed, or I can't believe I missed those series of notes. If you can kind of laugh at it, and not only laugh at it, but just not even think twice about it, kind of shrug it off, dismiss it, I think that can be extremely helpful in just getting to the one thing that you need to think about. I think practice can be extremely personal, but sometimes it's helpful to make it not personal. If I don't hit this series of notes, or if I'm playing out of tune, it's not a reflection on me as a person. It just means I need to go in and fix this one specific technical thing that I'm thinking about. And I think having the ability to almost detach yourself, imagine you're a third person, imagine somebody else is doing your practice for you.
Mm,
I think that that is actually an approach I have a lot when I'm practicing, versus getting very emotional when things aren't going away myself. Things tend to get away from you. So I think, again, just having the objective clear of what you're trying to achieve from your practice. If you're truly trying to achieve the best possible practice session, then really the least you can get attached to your mistakes, the better.
right.
So, but of course, everyone, I think, has moments of frustration, and I certainly have those too. And I think also just acknowledging them as totally normal and that everyone has them is important too. I've met a lot of violinists, and not just violinists, but people, string players at other instruments on Instagram, who have messaged me, who have been so frustrated with their practice. And I just kind of remind them that everyone experiences frustrations, and that is part of learning and playing an instrument. Actually, if you have no frustrations, then it probably means that you're not working very hard. Because I
Hmm.
don't know a single person that works really hard and doesn't have frustrations.
Yeah. And at times frustrations are related to, I mean, very often to expectations of quick results. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that with instrumental playing, that yes, you can get some quick results on some occasions, but usually it's a process. It takes time, it takes patience. It's like you go to the gym and you lift a weight and you start yelling at your bicep, like, bro, come on.
Yes,
That's not how it
I
works.
I totally agree. And actually, I remember having a lesson a couple years ago with a teacher that I studied with, Anna Chimachenko, a wonderful woman and musician, violinist. And I remember she was talking about something to do with, let me see what she was talking about. She was talking about something to do with the left hand. And yes, I remember what it was. It was about doing vibrato on one finger. So like a four finger vibrato exercise. And she told me what the exercise was, and then I said, how much should I do this, and what is the kind of timeline to this? And she was like, you're already thinking about it too much, just do it every day and don't expect something to happen. And actually, that was one of the wisest things that I learned from her, which is it's sometimes really important to just do things without expecting anything, but even a long-term goal, but just to do it. Because when you stop expecting anything, sometimes really great things just naturally start to happen. And you don't even notice they're there. There's some aspects of my technique now that I think there's no way I had that last year, but I'm not aware that I necessarily did exact things in
Mhm.
different ways. I just did one simple thing every day, and then it just kind of manifested into other things.
That's powerful. One simple thing every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I found that to be really true with the way that I practice in general. I tend to really just keep one or two streams of thought a day when I practice. I know it sounds quite simple, but I really don't. I go through phases of what I focus on. So, if I'm thinking about something with my bow, with if I'm feeling some tension in my thumb or something, I'll probably think about that most of the time that I practice in the day, and just kind of keep on that. And I'll kind of go through the flow of in and out of that focus. I'll obviously work on other things, but I'll kind of channel my focus through that one thing and then just keep coming back to it. And I find that to work well for me. I find if I'm trying to kind of conquer too many things, I normally just don't really achieve much at all.
Yes. Do you find it's that same way too with teaching? Is usually you notice something in the first student of the day and you kind of keep seeing it in everybody that day. It like
Yes,
steers your
definitely.
focus in one direction. I'm
Yes, it's so true.
I'm seeing a lot of things roll by here. Let me go back. So Anna says, this is so wonderful. I try to take frustration as a signal that I'm trying too hard and that I can change my approach. I love that. Ashley says, she was talking about, you were talking about vibrato. Learning vibrato needs a light bulb moment, but I never know when that moment will click for a student.
Mhm.
And Anna observes again, the mindset requires so much trust in the process. And
Yeah.
Susan also likes the idea of one thing a day is manageable, 100%.
Yeah, and I think also, just to kind of expand a little bit on what I was saying about my practice method, is that if I'm thinking about one particular topic or one particular stream of thought, I'll try and hit it from as many different angles as possible. So instead of just doing one specific exercise for the fun, I'll do that exercise, but then I'll do loads of different things that bring me back to thinking about my fun in completely different contexts. So I'm working it from lots of different angles, because I find that, again, if you just do a kind of a set routine of exercises, you tend to get tired of them relatively quickly, and you tend to max out your kind of potential for what you can do with them.
And then it becomes mechanical. So there's the
Yes.
mindless aspect of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love all of this, Callum.
Yeah.
Um, what about performance preparation? We were just talking about how they're coming back, the concerts, how exciting it is.
Mhm.
What does that look like for you when you prepare for a performance?
I normally have kind of it changes it depending on how far out the concert is. What I'm doing kind of the week leading up to a concert is vastly different from what I'm doing months before. But providing I've already learnt the piece and it's just kind of preparation, it's normally looking at run throughs. I normally try and run through the piece that I'm playing every day, just once. Um, I mix up when I do that. Sometimes it will be the first thing I do when I warm up. Sometimes it will be the last thing I do before I go to bed. I kind of like to mix it up in that regard. And then I always try, if I know a piece really well, I won't practice the whole thing every day. I'll just go to the bits that are the hardest and the most challenging. And that leaves me with the freedom and opportunity to pursue other repertoire, even if I am preparing for concerts that are in the same week or in the week after. Because I find when you, let's say I do have a concert, I think on June 13th, playing Brahms Concerto. Now, I could just do nothing but practice Brahms Concerto from now to June 13th. And I'm sure that I would have my hands full doing that anyway. But instead, what I'm much more likely to do is to spend maybe 1-2 hours on Brahms a day, just hitting the key parts, doing run throughs for memory, and then leaving the other couple of hours that I have to practice my Bach, to do some etudes, to learn new repertoire. And for me, not only will that be more fulfilling, but it will be less stressful, because I find when you only focus on the one thing that you're about to perform, you can kind of psych yourself out a little bit. So I like to kind of spread my practice in different ways and not over practice one thing, even if I have kind of the biggest performance in my life.
Mm-hmm. And any kind of practice fuels whatever project you're working on. So it's,
Yeah, I think that if I'm, do you mean if I'm, depending on what type of concert?
oh no, I mean that, you know, Bach will help any kind of repertoire you're playing, or,
Right.
anything that you practice elevates your state, your skills, your how in shape you are. So
Yeah.
practicing another piece helps the Brahms, but it also, this variety keeps it more fun, just as you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually I've definitely gotten to the point and have been here for probably 4 or 5 years now, where really the only thing that I truly care about is improving as a violinist in
Mm,
terms of my violinistic thinking. So even if I have a concert tomorrow, um, I'll be more focused on how I'm playing than the piece of music itself that I'm playing. So I think that great, when you have that mentality, then concerts come and go, things come in and out, but really your goal is always there. And there's something really comforting, and also that gives a lot of confidence when that is your goal, because you know that that will never change and it encompasses everything.
yes, really well put. It does encompass everything. Um, Anna has a follow-up question to what we were talking about earlier. Do you have an approach for generating ideas for practicing? What a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. Generating ideas. So I personally don't do this a lot, but I do recommend it to my students because I've seen how helpful it is, which is to write things down. My brain doesn't really think like that. I'm not the best person with kind of organizing. I kind of like to do it all in my head.
Mhm.
For whether that's bad or good sometimes is, it can go either way. But I definitely think writing things down is really helpful for generating ideas. And I think that the best thing that you could do for generating ideas is to just listen to a lot of music.
Mm.
The more music that, the kind of bigger your musical brain and imagination is, the more ideas you'll have just naturally without even trying. You don't need to sit down and kind of write them down in a lot of ways, because they'll just kind of be overflowing based on all the things that you've heard and been inspired by. So I would say kind of just a broader approach is just absorb yourself in as much musical knowledge as you can and let that seep into your practice. I really like to do that. If I'm practicing Brahms, maybe I'm reading a book on Brahms, or I'm listening to Brahms piano concertos or his symphonies, or I'm looking at a score, and lo and behold, I get to my moment where I'm practicing my Brahms and I'm suddenly seeing motives from other pieces, or I'm recognizing things in a general style, and that's really inspiring to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is my path forward with generating ideas. So I would say that in a broader sense, and in terms of characterization, using words and adjectives to describe music is extremely helpful, really to paint broader pictures of what type of characters that you're wanting from the music. And I think that's when it can be really helpful to write things down.
Mm. These are all such great suggestions. I agree so much with listening to more music or broadening your knowledge of a specific composer or genre. I remember when I started to play a lot of Mozart operas and learning about Mozart's music from the operatic perspective, it completely transformed how I play it as a violinist because, now I had, this goes back to your very first thing that you mentioned about singing, is I now hear Mozart as such an operatic music. The
Mm.
violin line is in my mind always a singer. And, I'm always approaching it from the perspective of how would that sound like if someone was singing it. And so knowing more about and listening to so many Mozart operas really affected how I play it as a violinist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think personally, just speaking from my end, just kind of a little personal story about me, is that opera is actually a huge part of my life. When I was in Indiana studying, actually for 5 years, I was a vocal accompanist. So actually, that was how I made my money in Indiana. How I was paying rent is actually going to all the singers' lessons, playing in all the classes and concerts, recitals. So that's kind of the whole other side of my musical world, is actually from the piano and accompanying singers. So I think that's why I'm so connected with that part. But that's informed so much of how I think musically when I go to play a melody on the violin. I can't help but see text and opera, and that's inspiring for me. And maybe it will be totally different for somebody else, but that's why it's important to broaden your horizons as much as possible, because you never know what you're going to drag into what you're doing on your daily basis.
That's incredible that you could be so skilled on the piano and the violin. You could do all of these things. Ashley says, I identify with that. I always have the ideas in my head, but struggle to write them down. And Susan says, this is great because everything that Callum is saying has been reinforcing all we've been talking about. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is so great. And I love your perspective and your approach on all of these topics because um, I just feel your genuine enthusiasm for it. It's so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm just very passionate about music, and um, that's really at the heart of my thinking. There's not really anything else.
Right? Let me look at the time here. You know what? I'd like to squeeze a couple of these rapid fire questions because I always like to ask
Sure.
those to my guests. What's a habit that you have that you think has contributed to your success? And you've mentioned several already, but
Okay, well, I'll mention one I haven't mentioned already, but I would say having a good routine. I would
mhm.
say having a good routine is essential to being successful, for me anyway. You know, eating well, sleeping well, exercising. I mean, they're such stereotypical things to say, but they're stereotypical for a reason because they just work. You know, when you live a healthy life, you have more energy and then you can bring so much more to the table. And when I have days where I'm not in that way, I'm just not as successful when I'm playing.
This ties in so well to what you were saying earlier about how um, when you listen to more music, that generates more ideas. And it's so true for all aspects of life and how they contribute to us being better musicians. All the books we read, or even the food we eat, the hikings that we do, all of this really contributes to fueling our creativity, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
What skills do you think young musicians studying today should acquire in addition to learning to play their instruments? And I'm starting to think that I should have learned to play the piano now.
I would say piano. Piano is a great one, but if you're a pianist already, then I would say any form of music theory or oral skills. I think even more important, I would say, than music theory, because that can just help you out, even if you don't have a lot of opportunities to play professionally. If you have great oral skills, you know, you can improvise, you can do so many different things just for fun. So I would say you know, just music theory, oral, transcribing things, you know, anything that just gets your musical brain working outside of your instrument, I think is fantastic use of your time.
And if I go back to the first question about expressivity, I feel like music theory fuels that as well. Once you start to understand the complexity of, beautiful chords and dissonances and things
Yeah.
like this, and the leading tone, and, how the third reacts in whatever key, all of that can really helps with that.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean, it's language. It's, you know, if you don't understand half the sentence, because it's in a different language, you don't get the meaning of the phrase. I really think that's exactly how music is. If you don't understand how something is put together, you're not going to understand, number one, how to play it, and also what your emotional reaction is to it.
yes, yes, excellent point. Is there a performance that stayed with you throughout the years?
It's so hard to pick just one.
Hmm.
I think that the first time I heard Pinker Zuckerman live in England, he came to Royal Festival. That was a great moment for me because I think it was one of the first times I remember hearing a violinist play and just thinking that person is just kind of at the peak of their artistry. And it was just very, very inspiring to see that, just everything coming together at once.
Mm. Oh, I love that. And how about a favorite tool in the practice room?
I would say, in terms of like a mechanical tool, like a machine,
Any.
anything.
I'm leaving that open-ended because
Okay,
I love
okay,
what people come up with.
okay. I would say closing your eyes.
Mm.
Favorite practice tool, close your eyes, because then you'll really listen. We get very distracted with, you know, using metronomes and, you know, looking at tuners and all sorts of things, and they're very helpful things to do for sure, but at the end of the day, like, your best tools are your ears. So sometimes just closing your eyes and really just getting in touch with what you're feeling and listening to is the best tool, I think.
Great tool in mindfulness.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And unless anyone has any more questions, if you do, please put them down now. Last call. Um, or we can even go right ahead with the quick actionable tip. And then if there are more questions, we'll come back. But how about a quick actionable tip that listeners could implement today in their practice rooms together with closing their eyes?
Okay, I would say that for this week, I challenge everyone to close your eyes and sing one passage of music, one line, and then play it and then compare and see how close they are together. And the reason that this is so helpful is because we're trying to fuse these two voices together. So get them as close together as you possibly can.
Ah, I love that. I love that. And you have to do it, and then you have to go in Callum's Instagram account and tell him how it went and what you
Yes.
experienced with that. I'm going to try it as well. Anna says, you have amazing perspective, Callum. Thank you so much. And I'm going to echo
Thank you.
that and just thank you so much for accepting the invitation and taking time. I know you're very busy to sit with me and answer our questions this morning. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It's wonderful to speak to you too. And thank you to everyone that's turned up and listening.
Thank you. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks again, Callum.
Thank you so much.